Some of the biggest hits of the 1960s were never written for radio. They started as background music, opening themes, end credit cues, tiny pieces designed to serve a scene. Then, without warning, they broke free and became massive records. That's exactly what this video is about. 10 1960s hits born as TV movie cues before anyone knew their name. If you're into hidden music history like this, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with the TV or movie theme you catch yourself humming for no reason. Because here's the wild part. These tracks usually had one simple job: fill silence, define a character, sell a mood. But the screen had reach, repetition, and memory. And once people started whistling at home, the radio was just the next stop. Number 10. Secret Agent Man, Johnny Rivers, 1966. This one began as a near-emergency request. Television needed a short, catchy identity theme that viewers could remember instantly. What was supposed to be a quick opening fragment turned into a record with blockbuster swagger, sharp guitar, forward momentum, and that spy chase pulse. And the behind-the-scenes story gets messy in the best way. Credits and recollections became a mini maze. Different people have claimed pieces of the riff's origin, and even the famous live energy of the release has been debated. It's the kind of song that feels like it was invented at speed, under pressure, in the exact way a TV deadline forces you to be bold. The lyric talks about losing your name and becoming a number, yet the song did the opposite. It started as a utility cue and earned a title nobody forgot. And once TV executives saw that happen, they tried the formula again with a masked hero and a theme that refused to stay on the screen. Number 9. Batman Theme, The Marquettes, 1966. You can't hear this theme without seeing the show in your head. But the real story is stranger than the music itself. For years, a huge number of people swore the famous "Batman" shouts were horn section. They weren't. They were voices. And that kind of collective misremembering is how themes become legends. Around the original TV version, competing recordings started showing up like it was a race. That's where the Marquettes made their move, taking the identity of the theme and pushing it into surf rock territory, turning it into something that sounded like it belonged on a dance floor, not just in an opening title sequence. And once a theme becomes playable outside of TV, it stops being a jingle and starts being a product. Suddenly, people weren't only consuming a series, they were consuming a sound. But if you think that's big, wait until you hear what happened when a crime show theme landed with the force of a wave and powered straight into the pop charts. Number 8. Hawaii Five-0, The Ventures, 1969. Some themes are born with anthem energy. This is one of them. It came from television, but the version that burned itself into pop culture arrived with guitars and that unmistakable instrumental band drive. It sounded built for motion, invisible sirens, hot pavement, a chase you could feel. And here's the modern twist people don't expect from a 60s TV theme. Decades later, the melody's value sparked a real dispute over rights when it was reused. That's how far a cue can travel. It begins as a signature for a show and ends up treated like intellectual property worth fighting over. That says everything about what a cue can become. It isn't just supporting music, it's branding. And when branding is powerful, it survives eras, formats, and reboots. But sometimes the path to a hit doesn't need a whole series behind it. It only needs one instrument, played the right way at the right moment. Number 7. Classical Gas, Mason Williams, 1968. In the middle of an era dominated by loud guitars and bigger personalities, an instrumental with a classical flavor shows up like an elegant intruder. No vocal, no sing-along chorus, and somehow it still stuck. What makes it even better is where it came from. The TV world. It wasn't introduced like a typical pop single. It showed up as a performance, almost like a breather that secretly carried serious ambition. Even the title has a strange origin. It wasn't supposed to be called that. A backstage error shortened the original idea, and the mistake became permanent once the record caught fire. And like every famous instrumental, it attracted confusion. People crediting it to other musicians, mix-ups fueled by later film and TV appearances. The track became a living thing, bigger than its first context. But it proved a simple rule. If the melody hits, the public will follow you into unexpected territory. And speaking of unexpected, very few screen-born themes sound as effortlessly stylish as the next one. Number 6. The Pink Panther theme, Henry Mancini, 1964. This isn't just music, it's a character in sound. The theme was designed to introduce an entire world in seconds. Classy humor, light mystery, soft-footed confidence, and then there's that grin of a timbre, the sax that seems to wink at you while it plays. The genius part is that it was built for the film's identity, yet it worked as a standalone record. It escaped its scene and turned into a radio-friendly piece that could live anywhere. Commercials, pop culture references, casual piano bars, your brain at 2 a.m. That's when you realize TV and movies weren't only borrowing pop songs, they were manufacturing them, creating melodies the world would recognize in 2 seconds. But sometimes the emotion wasn't playful or ironic. Sometimes the screen aimed straight for inspiration and accidentally created a theme with a life far beyond the theater. Number 5. Born Free, Roger Williams, 1966. This is the kind of theme that feels bigger than the film itself. It was made to translate freedom into music. Open air, open space, a horizon you can hear. That's why it works so well outside the movie. You don't need the scene, the melody gives you the picture. The surprising detail is how powerful an instrumental version can be. Even when the charts were crowded with vocal hits, this melody proved it could move people without words. And once an audience feels that, a cue stops being film music and becomes real-life soundtrack material. That was the screen's secret power. It could create a melody and quietly hand it a whole second career. But if Born Free is soaring and noble, the next entry flips the mood completely. Strange, theatrical, almost cartoonish, and still impossible to resist. As free as the wind. Number 4. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Hugo Montenegro, 1968. This track feels like it's built out of signals instead of notes. Whistles, calls, sound effects that play like a duel. It was born to stamp a Western with personality, but the hit version carried all that cinematic weirdness straight into pop radio like it belonged there. And that's the funniest part. On the radio, the record dragged the movie behind it. Even if you'd never seen the scene, you could hear the dust, the sun, the tension. It was portable cinema pressed onto vinyl. There's also an extra flavor hiding in the recording. Odd vocalizations and sonic quirks that could have been too strange for mainstream airplay. Instead, they became the signature. When a track is instantly recognizable, it's already halfway to being a hit. And speaking of signatures, few romantic melodies left a deeper stamp on pop culture than the next one. Number 3. Love Theme from Romeo and Juliet, Henry Mancini, 1969. This is romance, sealed into 2.5 minutes. The melody came from the cinema, but the arrangement reshaped it into a radio object. Easy to identify, hard to ignore, emotionally direct. The most telling part is that not everyone wanted it on the charts. Some stations reportedly resisted because it was too soft, like rock had permanently outlawed tenderness. But the public voted with their ears, and when a romantic instrumental hits #1, the entire industry has to recalibrate what modern even means. This is a case where the cue didn't just support the film, it absorbed the film's cultural space and then kept living on its own. But if you think that's powerful, wait for the moment a song is born inside a movie almost unfinished and still becomes one of the decade's defining records. Number 2. Mrs. Robinson, Simon and Garfunkel, 1968. This sounds like a fully formed classic, but its origin was much messier. It began as a sketch for a film, with a different name, a different focus, and pieces still being shaped. The screen got the idea first. The radio got the polished version later. And that's the trick. When a movie uses fragments of a song, it plants the melody in the audience's brain before the single even exists. By the time the full version lands, it already feels familiar, like the public is remembering it instead of hearing it for the first time. And because it became a symbol, it collected side stories, like the famous Joe DiMaggio reference that sparked questions and explanations for years. That's what happens when a cue becomes culture. People spend decades trying to unlock what it really meant. But hold on, because the #1 entry is the ultimate example of a movie cue turning into an empire, with an irony most people never notice. Number 1. Theme from A Summer Place, Percy Faith, 1960. This is the final boss of the list. It didn't just become a hit, it became a phenomenon that feels almost disproportionate for an instrumental associated with a film. And the detail that makes it even more intriguing is that the famous recording isn't simply the version from the movie, the way people assume. It has its own strange path, its own life, its own climb. It was released, it took time to catch, and then it surged into something enormous. Instead of aging with the film, it turned into a sonic symbol of an era. One of those melodies you recognize even if you can't place it. And that closes the loop. Cues aren't leftovers. Sometimes they're the emotional core that audiences carry home. If any of these surprised you, comment the most unbelievable one. And if you want more music stories told like this, like and subscribe, because sometimes the biggest hit in your life started as background music.